Are you finding yourself a little bit stressed or anxious right now? Well, anxiety and stress are really not good for physical and mental health, of course. And today I want to talk about my story on this and what's really helped me with these in particular. Now, before we sort of really dive in, I want to obviously point out that I'm not a mental health professional. So, if you are in a serious challenge with stress or anxiety, of course, do go and seek professional guidance if you haven't already, or doctor or whatever. Now, I'm just sharing my own story in terms of this. Now, in and it's I'm going to share what has been true for me and what's worked for me. And as always, you feel free to disagree. I'm not saying this is a one size fits all, just to be very, very clear. This is what's worked for me personally. I had sky high anxiety in 2023. I was like really worried about things. I was struggling to sleep. I was constantly in this like fight or flight response. And I got to a point, it was like a combination of things like personal relationship and also work factors, career factors. Even though I'd done all this work before, and some falling outs with people and all these kind of things, where life really decided to give me some challenges, right, for my own good, as it turned out. But I remember it becoming a state of living, and I was like, just like, wow, I'm just right, so anxious. And I actually was suggested by loved ones to go to the doctor and talk to the doctor about this. And the doctor was doctors are beautiful people, very sympathetic, and gave me some medication for it. Now, if I'm honest, it didn't really help. It maybe temporarily for about an hour max relieved my symptoms, but they come back when I started thinking in certain ways. And when I started thinking in different ways and really looking at situations differently, really paying attention to my diet, that's when I found transformation, because I was looking at the cause, not the symptoms. And again, to be clear, I'm not saying like medication isn't needed in some cases, in different like mental health challenges. Like it's everyone to their own situation. I'm just saying for me, sometimes we're just very quick to jump into like, right, there's these symptoms, therefore I'll take this pill and get rid of the symptoms, when actually there's a cause beneath. And if you study someone like an expert on brain health like Dr. Amen, who I'm going to talk about a lot on this podcast, not this episode in particular, but a lot across a lot of episodes, his work on like brain health, and actually if you actually look at what's going on in the brain and then treating that rather than just giving short-term fixes of symptoms, creates actual proper transformation. And that's what I've certainly found when I started looking at like the stories, the way I was thinking, or even giving myself better nutrition or helping like deficiencies. That's when the symptoms reduced or went away completely, because I was treating the cause, not just the symptoms. So again, this is just my perspective. Now, I believe there's like two different ways, two different things to look at when we're talking about stress and anxiety. One is the brain slash physical health. It's like, are you looking after your physical health, your brain health, which are a very similar thing? And two, psychologically, are you working on your thoughts? Because I believe if you work on your thoughts and then you've got like a crap diet, that's not going to work, because like things like too much sugar can make you even more anxious. So you can be thinking all the things in the world like, I feel good, like, oh, that thought's not true and all that kind of thing. But then if you're like, you're hungover from loads and loads of alcohol, totally been there, by the way, many times, you're just like, it's going to be hard to think because you've not got the other area sorted. So ask yourself this, like, what is true for you today? Like, is it that you really want to move forward with managing your stress and anxiety, or do you want to where do you want to go with this today? It's about being very honest with yourself. And again, it's your decision. So this is just what's worked for me. Here's some points. Number one, with stress and anxiety, what I found is really useful to do is take an inventory of routines and mood. So writing it down, massive awareness. Every single day I write down, right, this is the date, this is my score in terms of mood, 10 out of 10 being like, I love life, I feel amazing. One being like, I really feel terrible. And that could be anxious, that could be just feeling down, right? And I haven't been on a, can't remember the last time I was near a one, right? Because of the way I look after myself. Even when challenges come in, I'm just like, let's deal with it. If I'm like eating well, right, and got all the right routines and meditation, breathwork and things, right? So taking that inventory, and I didn't finish the point there, did I? But you've got like the date, you've got the score, and then the next column I have is like what things were showing up, what were my results in the day. It's just like, oh, an opportunity came to me out of nowhere. Like I just read a minute ago, I got this random email from someone I hadn't spoke to for 2 or 3 years. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That showed up when I'm in this high energy. And then the fourth column is what are the routines I'm doing? Like, what is it I'm doing? Like, what am I eating? What I'm consuming? And am I taking like things that are good for my brain or not good for my brain? That's always a good question you can ask yourself. So that's the first thing. The second thing is become aware of what's happening with your stress and anxiety if you've just eaten a food. Like, and some foods surprise you. Like, most people are aware that, like, we all have, and one thing I'll say again, it's not one size fits all. We've all got different sensitivities to food. You know, some people are so allergic to nuts that they would go to hospital or even, unfortunately, die if they had nuts, right? But other people can have nuts. And that's a physical symptom, of course, but like there's also mental impacts of taking certain foods to some people and not others, right? So if you like notice a change in mood, just pay attention to what you've eaten. I know when I have a load of sugary cereals, which on the surface appear to be healthy, but they're really not, they're jam full of sugar. I notice like I'm crashing like an hour or so later. And there's a really good protein drink, chocolate protein drink. I won't name the brand, but they are, you know, they look amazing. They've done all this. They put this drink together, and actually, what I realised there's a lot of chemicals in it, even though it's so called healthy. But I noticed when I had that drink, it tastes delicious. I feel good from the taste of chocolate, and then like 30 minutes to an hour later, I'm suddenly getting anxious. I'm getting all these negative thoughts because I'm sensitive to that drink. So I have to become aware of it. I know when I eat like more natural, and coffee is actually fine with me, but I know it's challenging for others. When I eat more natural, I feel a lot better, right? The third thing is note things that stress you out as they come up. So like someone sent you an email that is like a response you weren't hoping, and then it creates this kind of like fight or flight, like scared, anxious approach in your body. Take a note of that on your phone immediately. Just write down, this happened and I felt anxious. Because becoming aware of things is really, really going to help you later as well. And what I would say is later on in the day or maybe the next morning, just journal into it. Say, this, like for me, one of the things was like looking at emails. It's a crazy thing. I was so scared of reading emails in case I got something banned as a response, because it made me feel like I'm not enough. And actually what I realized was I like had some deep wounding around that when I started up being honest on what the truth was, and then turning it around. That made a big transformation for me. Okay, now let's go on to the fourth point. Focus on where you want to go and condition that. So if you're saying to yourself, I don't want anxiety, I don't want stress, I don't want to feel like this, guess what's going to show up more? Anxiety and stress, because you're like, I'm an anxious, and don't ever identify as being a stress or anxious person, because as human beings, we will act in accordance with how we define ourselves. So if you keep like either labeling it, maybe you don't identify with it, but you keep saying, I don't want to experience anxiety. Experiencing something and being something are two different things. But don't say, if you're saying, I don't want to experience anxiety or stress anymore, you're actually focusing on it. by saying that. Instead, what's the opposite? I want to feel cool. I want to feel calm. I want to feel peace. I want to feel relaxed. That's great. That's exactly what you want to be focusing on. That's like, and it, whatever it is for you, what feeling do you want? Focusing on where you want to go, what you want to feel is my next point for you. And then condition that as many times as possible. And guess what? It is actually part of you. Like, I believe and I understand that when we're like in our pure forms as babies, we're all joy, we're all love, we're all like relaxed, we're comfortable in who we are, and then things happen through life. So actually remind yourself of that and then reconditioning yourself back to that. So like scheduling some time in a day, like where you can maybe get excited, be happy, put a smile on your face, just relax and chill out. Because the more you do that, the more you're going to train your body to feel more of that as well. And then the final point, breathing. Real key for stress and anxiety. Now we all breathe, but we all breathe differently. And there's different ways, so many different ways to breathe. It's crazy, right? But a lot of the time when you're stressed and anxious, well, most of the time, if not all the time, you're going to be shallow breathing, be like, and your breathing is going to be like different from what it is when you're relaxed. So if you want to change your state quicker, then find time in the day to do some breathing. Like start the day off by doing some breath work. I'm a practitioner, so if you ever want to reach out to me, do so. I'm putting together a short form course on breath work as well, which is free at the moment. So if you want any of that, let me know. But yeah, in terms of breath work, that's a real essential. It's game changer for my mental health and reducing stress and anxiety. So start getting more breath work into your days as well. So those are the points I want to talk about that have been really effective tools for me with stress and anxiety. Again, it's not a one size fits all, it's what's worked for me. And if you have any serious conditions, do go see a professional, of course. So the first point I talked about was being aware of your routines and mood. What's the correlation between what you're doing and what your mood is? The next point I talked about was noting how you're feeling after food. The third point is noting any stresses that come up and then journaling into them later. The fourth point I talked about is focusing on where you want to go and conditioning that into your system. And then the final point is breathing, because that really helps with your mental health as well, I personally found. So that's what I got for you today. I really appreciate you for being here and staying with me through this podcast. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.